was like, you just have this amazing innate sense of space and just phrasing and musicality. And I actually kind of wanted to talk about that because I know you had really early experiences playing with Hank Marr when you were like 16. And I wonder, about that type of mentorship and where you kind of learned to, know that it was okay to take time, take your time.
Right. Those, because they were much older than me. And so like my very first gig with Hank, Rusty Bryant was playing sax, Jeanette Williams was singing, and then they had another sax player named PC, and I think Bobby Austin was playing trumpet, Billy Brown was on drums. It was like all the cats, right? And I remember the first tune they played was April in Paris.
Okay.
That's up in the front of the fake book, so we've all looked at that, but not really studied it because it starts on the half diminished. And so, once you start digging into it, you go, oh, it's a little more complicated than it appeared. Yeah. So I remember playing the first tune and everybody taking like prolific solos, not just like playing licks and stuff. Everybody like had something special to say. Yeah. And I remember it was my turn and I just struggled. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh my goodness, this tune is like really hard to play. So, I mean, it looks simple, but to sound like them, and so from that day on, of course, I used to listen to a lot of tasteful players, but from that day on, I always wanted to sound mature, like them, because they would play their course and people would clap and I would be listening while they're playing thinking, oh man, that was so dope. That was, oh man, dude. Oh man, he held that note like for 2 measures, like through all those changes, like that one note, know, and things like that, and it made me start listening like that, and it made me start really contemplating what I played, almost to the point that that I almost excluded the blues from my playing sometimes. I think rhythmically I acknowledge it, but I think because I was so in search of like the center of the chord progression, as a phrase, like instead of thinking of each chord, like what's this 4 bars? What is that saying?
Totally. Yep.
So it made me really sensitive to like tunes and chord progressions and just really digging in and trying to find the meat.
One of the things that, when I think about cats that have, above me that I look up to, one of the things I envy is just you had the opportunity to play 6 nights a week with these guys and play just tune after tune. And you were on that level. You just had to be there because just the sheer volume of what was happening, you had to keep your gig. You were playing with all these people. And I definitely envy that. Like I was listening to that when you guys were talking about Hank Marr with Compton a few months back.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, I would kill to play like 6 nights with an organ trio and just like get my butt kicked. Like, whew.
Right. And the thing back then, the gigs lasted long. So they had B3s that sat in the club. Of course, they have the Blue Velvet. But they had it at almost every club, had a B3.
That is wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. And those guys, there were like tons of organ players, and Tony Monaco was one of them.
Totally.
Because he was 1 year ahead of me, but gigging. He was like gigging and singing. He was with Rusty. We played at the Anchor Inn on the weekends. And Tony was downstairs and Hank was upstairs. but Tony was downstairs with Rusty.
Wow.
Yep. Yep.
Man, Columbus is so deep. I mean, I was listening to some Rusty like a couple weeks ago. I was like, this is like the dirtiest, swingingest thing I've ever heard. It's crazy.
And melodic too.
Oh yeah,
like
totally.
You know, it was soulful and melodic.
Totally.
And a very specific language. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It's another thing. But Hank was so musical. He treated the organ like an orchestra. Mm-hmm. So I mean, he was so like, he told me that he learned all the standards in all 12 keys.
I believe it.
And he went through the whole fake book like in alphabetical order. But he could, like, when we would get a singer, sometimes singers would sit in and they would sing out a tune, like go to a different key. He could he would follow them.
Oh, man.
To the different key.
That's bad. That's crazy.
I mean, I guess it was to kind of make us laugh a little bit.
Right.
But he could follow them and just keep modulating to different keys.
Well, that's the thing about someone that's so amazing. Like, they just make you play better. They make you feel better. Like, you know, every time I played with Bobby Floyd or something, or Tony McClung or whatever, I'm like, I'm playing better. Thanks, right. Bobby.
Exactly. Me too. Yep. They just uplift you, those kind of players. And I was thinking about Jeff and Tony the other day, you know, because I had run into them up at the Blue Velvet on the rooftop because they played, and I was just thinking, man, I haven't played with those guys in a long time. That would be really fun. And I didn't get to catch you playing with them. Are you still gigging with them?
Yeah, I definitely gig with them. It's been a little while. I sat in with Hoodoo a couple of weeks back. But yeah, nothing regular because I'm in grad school now, so it's kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, those two guys are by far my biggest mentors and biggest heroes. I mean, if it wasn't for them, I mean, I got just as much of an education as I did in my undergrad with just those two guys. Just years of birdcheck gigs and pop gun and all that stuff. I mean, I really learned how to play trio with them, and I'm so grateful.
Right. I'm sorry I missed you with them because
I know all good.
Super dope. Super dope. And did you study with Stan?
Yeah. Yep.
You know, Stan is like 50 years ahead of everybody.
Tell me about it.
I mean, he was doing all that real cool stuff like a long time ago.
I know.
You know, and you got to be brave when you do that. You know what I mean? Because you're out there by yourself.
Yeah.
But he's been doing that cool stuff. And that, I mean, it shows in your playing too, man. I just really love your playing. And I just get inspired when I hear you. I mean, that's some of the stuff I've been shedding. You know, when I had you lecture the students at Ohio State, and you showed us the E7 sharp 9.
Oh, inverting it?
Right.
You're wild.
I started experimenting a lot more, you know, with things like, for example, the use of open strings. I think you've inspired that in me.
Oh.
You know, because I never really used open strings on purpose.
Yeah.
Because I always want to be able to play, because of the Hank influence, all those cats, just be able to play everything in all 12 keys.
Totally.
I never wanted to be stuck with an arrangement in a key where I had to use an open string. But I don't have any arrangements. Utilize it. And when I really analyze it, you're actually just using the instrument for what it can do. You know, the trumpet can do certain things.
Yep.
Sax can do things. The piano can do certain things that only that instrument can do.
Yeah.
The guitar can do that.
Yep.
You know,
I mean, guitar is like, it's like the coolest instrument ever. We can bend. There's just so many timbral things to do, and the open strings. I mean, it's an insane instrument. Obviously, you can kind of take it too far and do all these guitaristic, showy things, but there are some beautiful textures, especially with open strings, that just can level up an arrangement, or you're playing, or a voicing, or even like doing lines with open strings. Like Bill Frisell does it all the time, and
Right.
Josh Hill uses that stuff all the time. That's kind of where I got hip to it.
Right. And Josh is another one. You know,
don't even talk about him.
I know it. I went to the Capitol guitar event. And it seems like every time they have it, I was like out of town doing a gig. But one time I flew back that very day. I got off the airplane and went straight to the event, and I got to hear Josh's presentation. And he sat there. You may have been there, but he sat there and went through, like, talked about how he would take the modes and just keep playing them so he could really understand what those sounds were.
Yeah.
And that's what helped me to devise my approach to appreciating the 3-chord. When I heard him say that, I said, I never really sat with that chord in context and absorbed that.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I've been thinking about a lot is, like, when we're shedding, especially like blowing over a tune, we'll take like, all right, I'll do like 5 choruses, which is something you would do at a gig. But I got hip to this idea from Julian Lage. Like, what if you practice like 50 choruses, just like marathon, like improvising? Because then after a certain point, you get to we always get to that point where we're like, oh, I don't know what to play, and then we stop. But what if we like get past that barrier, keep going, and then see what happens? Like the other day, I spent like 20 minutes playing Oleo, like pretty slow, rhythm changes pretty slow. And like after like the 15th chorus, I like felt so dark. I hated everything. But then a couple choruses after, I was doing these like weird things I had never thought of. And then I stopped, and then I started working on that little thing that I had never done before.
Right. That's great. I'm surprised I hadn't run into that, because I take YouTube lessons every day.
Yeah, totally.
Man, I think I get about $1,000 worth of lessons.
Absolutely.
Every day. And Julian is one of the guys I check out. Him and I've been checking out Mike Moreno too.
Yeah, he's bad. Yeah. He's super bad.
Any guys that I see you guys checking out, I check out. Hey, I just look dumb. I'm not that dumb.
Oh, stop.
But no, really. Yeah, man. So, it's a really interesting journey, especially now, digging into things. But I'm going to try that, I'm going to try that. Because, usually I'll set my little accompaniment thing up. I always have it on 10 times.
Yeah.
That's my default setting. I'm going to raise it up. I might not go up to 50. I'm going to see if I can get to that point at 30, maybe. I'll try 30 and then move it up. But that's really deep, because then you're all of a sudden, you're playing single notes, and you keep playing single. You're like, I can play double stops.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's the stuff, because you get bored with yourself, because like, all right, every turn onto the floor, I keep doing the same lick. Like, man, what am I going to do? And then in the moment, you're just like, all right, what if I do the opposite, or just like do something weird? There's no pressure. You're just alone.
Right.
So that's the strangest thing about practicing. It's like, oh man, like you like tense up if you mess up, or you like feel bad. I'm like, I'm just sitting in a room with a guitar in my lap.
Right.
What's the big deal?
Right. It's funny because, I've been watching Monk videos, and he seems to have that same idea, like, big deal.
Totally.
Like the saxophone player, what's his name? Charlie Rouse. He goes, hey, what you play over this? He goes, they all work. Like all the notes work. That's the way I took it,
Right.
His philosophy. But yeah, he's not uptight about it, and let's face it, some of the stuff Monk plays is like, I mean, in that context, in the Western music context, you're like, what the heck?
Exactly.
But he's like, that's my music, and I know for sure, because I've been checking out a lot of videos, that they said, like, what's his name? Piano player, composer, I can't think of his name, but he went over to see Monk, and he said Monk didn't say a word to him like for 2 hours or something. Then he went back the next time, he said Monk just played for 2 hours, like where most people would stop.
Yeah, right.
Keep going.
Wow.
And he would do that on one tune.
That's heavy.
That's funny that you said that, and I just remembered that.
Right.
Yeah.
Wild.
So he'd probably do it more than 50.
Yeah.
So,
That's incredible.
But no, thanks for that. I'm gonna,
Oh no. I know nothing. My stance. I know nothing, and I'm happy about it. Actually, so I want to get back to, you mentioned the word journey, and I kind of wanted to know a little more about your move to Illinois and that whole part of your chapter, because we haven't really talked about that with you. So I know you were in Columbus until like the mid 90s. Like, when did you move?
Yeah, I left in 96.
Okay.
Yep.
And what was
the winter of 96?
Okay. What was the impetus for that?
So my wife got her PhD at Ohio State in accounting. And she, after you get your PhD in accounting, they make you apply for jobs, like the really good jobs, because they want to say their students,
of course,
got placed in this top school.
Mm-hmm.
And so for public universities, Illinois is the number one.
Okay.
But my wife wanted to go back to her alma mater in North Carolina. And so she just applied just to see what would happen.
Sure.
They hired her.
Wow.
And so we had to go. So, I mean, she had visited the town that day, and she called and she said, "Oh my goodness, this town is so small. No tall buildings, just like in a corn. It's in the middle of a corn."
What's the town?
Champaign, Illinois.
Okay.
So you don't even know the town. I would tell my colleagues that, I said, people in Columbus don't even know where U of I is.
Right.
They would always talk about football. I said, there's only one other team, Michigan, as far as us Ohio folks are concerned. But no, it's in Champaign. So it's in the middle of nowhere. So she got that gig. And so I saw it. At the time, I had two great gigs because I was teaching at Ohio State.
Oh.
And I was teaching at Fort Hays at the same time.
I didn't know that you were teaching at OSU way back then.
Yep, 94 to 96.
Wow.
And then I was at Fort Hays at the same time. That was my teaching, regular teaching gig. And I taught at Ohio State in the evening. So I had to, I really, it hurt me to leave,
Sure.
I thought these are great gigs, great anchor gigs. So
Anyway,
so worked out a deal where I could get my grad degree, like what you're doing now. So I got my master's, which I'm really happy that I did. Mm-hmm. Got my master's in music education.
Okay.
My undergrad's in performance. So I got in music ed. Then I started, after I graduated in 2 years, I started teaching orchestra.
Wow.
In the public school. So I taught 4th grade through 12th grade for 14 years.
Wow.
Now, the great thing about Champaign is right after that, a few years after I'd been there, maybe 5 years or so, because I was there for 17 years, maybe 6 or 7 years. No, it's longer than that. Maybe 10 years. After about 10 years I was there, Chip McNeil came and took over the jazz department. And
Okay.
all of a sudden, they had all these guys from Chicago teaching there, like Dana Hall.
Oh, wow. Ooh.
Now they have Chip Stevens was the pianist. Super killing basses from Chicago. Played with Ramsey. His name slips, and he teaches guitar. He's a really good guitar player too. But all of a sudden, you had all these jazz musicians in this little small town.
Wow.
10 great sax players. Sean Purcell was there. We were there at the same time. So I used to
That's right.
play bass. We would play at a restaurant. His wife would sing. He played guitar, and I was playing bass. And yeah,
I forgot you guys.
That's how we met.
Yeah, that's funny.
So I mean, in this little dinky town, man, it was like that was like awesome. So I got all that teaching experience, and then the music kept going. Of course, not as many gigs.
Yeah,
here. And the gigs don't pay like around here.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, getting into teaching in the public school system, I mean, was that something you had ever thought about? I mean, it seems so totally divergent.
Initially, I told myself I would never become a teacher, but I was young.
Yeah.
When you're young, you say a lot of things.
Yes, I do.
But I told me I would never become like a public school teacher.
Sure.
That was like the most uncool thing you could do.
Right.
Especially like teach marching band or orchestra, I thought was kind of cool. That's why, I think I ended up doing orchestra, which I absolutely loved, But early on, I had not considered it.
Okay.
So then I was still in the middle of that. I started going on the road.
Wow.
So the guy I started working with, I told him, I said, I can only work on weekends. And of course, that would mean automatically you would lose that gig, right? They would go, oh, well, I can't use you. I'll get somebody. But he said, just take whatever gig you can take.
Wow.
And so I had not missed I missed like maybe one gig because of teaching, because I had scheduled a concert and we had a gig in Hawaii. Oh, and I told him, I said, I can't do it because I have a concert. Because if I cancel the concert, if I have 70 kids, that's 140 parents.
Yeah, right.
That's 210 people that you're inconvenienced
to.
Just so I can go, play for 55 minutes,
Right. In Hawaii, they'd be real mad.
So I'd end up, over a period of 15 years, I only missed a few gigs because of teaching. But I was doing both at the same time. And of course, in the summer, I never had to worry about a check or anything. I could go wherever I want, for 3 months.
Was that with Kirk?
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you land that gig?
Well, it was funny because at the church we attended, we had like a gala every year to raise funds for a substance abuse ministry that we had, and where the patients would stay for a year, and I forget what in-house, substance abuse. So we had to raise money for that. So we would have a guest speaker, like I think, let me see, I can't even think some of the speakers, but really big names, like one of the co-owners of BET spoke.
Oh, wow.
And so we had to have entertainment.
Sure.
But we had to have, because it's church, so we had to have Christian entertainment, but we wanted it to be jazz too. And so we thought, oh, well, Kirk, he's like an ordained minister. So
okay.
we could have him play. So she called, I got his number from a friend. She called him. He gave her the price, and we couldn't afford the price, right? And then he said, well, I do a duo with a pianist, this great pianist named John Stoddard. And so that was affordable. So we had them come. So I was the driver. My wife, she was over the whole event. So I was assigned as the driver. So I would pick up ministers and everybody. So I picked Kirk up at the airport. We only have at the time, one nice hotel. So we got to that hotel and the room wasn't ready. And they didn't even have a lobby or anything. And so,
no.
And so I was kind of embarrassed. He said, "Oh, no problem." He's really super nice, the nicest guy on planet Earth. So he goes, "No problem. Can you take me to a place where I can practice?" So I said, "We can just go to my house because Champagne's so small, you can get anywhere." So I took him to my house, put him in the basement and gave him a drink. And then I went back down to check on him. Everything okay? He saw my guitars. He goes, "So you play guitar?" I said, "Yeah, I play." He said, let's practice together.
Wow.
So he goes, "I've been working on this tune, Inner Urge."
Wow.
Right. So I never worked on the melody to Inner Urge. Right. Wow. So he puts the music up and, Inner Urge is not a sight reading tune for guitar. Right. A group of 13 notes with, the bracket over it. You're like, huh?
What are these black dots?
So I took my guitar out and then he turned his head and I said, blew all the dust off the strings. And then I reviewed the beginner guitar book oh, this is high E, this low E, because I had been teaching,
Wow.
Primarily, I hadn't been playing a lot. So,
okay.
So he turns on the Jamie Aebersold thing. Yeah. We're playing along and he plays it really slow, the melody. And I struggled with the melody. I didn't get it, because of fingerings and all,
right.
Things that go along with Inner Urge. And so I was thinking, oh man, let's just improvise. I'm thinking that in my head, so I can redeem myself.
Right.
So we started improvising. And then when we got done, he goes, "Why don't I know you?" He said, "Man, this is so serendipitous." He said, I should know you.
Wow.
So he just we talked for about a month after that. And then he asked me if I wanted to be in the band.
Wow.
And that's when I told him, I said, I can only do weekends.
Sure.
So he was like, "Man, take whatever gigs you want to take."
Man, it's so funny. I mean, I'm sure when you moved out there and started teaching in public school system, you never would have thought. Did you ever think you would be on the road to?
Oh no, my career was over.
You thought your career was over?
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, I thought my performance career was over pretty much.
Wow.
I thought I'd never, have a chance to do anything like what I'm doing, or what I have done.
Yeah, that is incredible. That's a really cool story.
Yeah, it really is. I love telling people that because it's just really, really, that doesn't happen.
No.
It doesn't happen. And the funny thing about it, if there was any artist that I would go out with, that I felt like had the same kind of vibe as me and, thinks of things the same way, it would be him.
Wow.
Because I've always admired his playing, because he was, that's the person I'm talking about who is able to improvise diatonically.
Right.
Really well.
Right.
He doesn't have to play the lopsided stuff, even though he can. But
sure.
He's not just restricted to that.
Yeah.
But if there was one person that it would have been him.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And the gig is so nice, man. It was so nice. It was perfect because I'm the worst guy in the band. The bass player is so amazing that you would go, seriously? You can play like that?
Right.
And the drummer is amazing. He has perfect pitch. Sometimes Kirk will start a tune and he'll go, wrong key. Like the drummer.
Wow.
Or we're working on a tune, he'll go, no, that's the wrong key.
Wow.
Everybody in the band is like that, except for me.
Oh.
So I mean, it's like, man, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to do you know Barry Green?
I don't know him, but I know of him.
Of him, yeah. I did an interview with him yesterday morning, and we were talking about that. Like, it's kind of like the best when you're the worst on the bandstand.
It is.
I mean, at least when you're coming up, at least and trying to cut your teeth. Like, you don't want to be the best person in the room.
You don't.
Even though it might be scary, and you might, be really sad or dark afterwards. But those are the moments where you're like, all right, here we go.
Yep. Because every time those guys take solos, it's like incredible. It's almost like I'm watching them. You know what I mean? I'm not a part of the band. Because we do like giant steps, obviously, Inner Urge. We do, a couple, but we do commercial stuff too, but it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
One time we were just shedding on giant steps before we added it. And the drummer was like, let's do it in 7. And so Kirk writes it on the set list for that night.
Oh, no.
When they decided.
Yikes.
I'm like, I don't know. I got to take 2 notes out of, through this measure, I got to take 2 eighth notes out. I knew I had the math together.
Right. I can count to 7.
I only have 6 eighth notes in this bar.
Right.
And that's a bad